All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Happy Monday. Hello, Jen. How's it going?
Hello. Good.
Good. Today is our 251st episode.
Wow.
And, excuse me, I keep seeing a ton of stuff about AI and how much people hate it or love it. And so I thought, how are most people using AI? Most people are using AI like they put in a simple basic prompt and they expect an answer. They're using it like Google, right? They're using it for search. But you can do so many more things with AI. So I thought it would be fun to have AI interview us.
Okay.
So what I did was I created this prompt. It's very long, and we'll see how it goes. Basically, what the AI is going to do is take my prompt, run it, and feed us questions. I don't know how long or in-depth the questions will be. That's part of this experiment. There's 25 questions. We might get through them all. We might not. I don't know. Just
Okay.
kind of depends, and we'll see what happens. And then we'll go from there. But we always start with our opening takes. So what do you got, Jen?
So I had actually a couple, I feel, but I'm going to focus on one. So I see a ton of posts on, this generation doesn't want to do anything. My staff's unmotivated. And I love to push people that want to be pushed. And so recently, coming into this year, Todd had said a few episodes ago, we wrapped up our one-on-one meetings. And in those, we're always asking, what do you want to do this year to be better? Like, how can you see yourself growing? And also within those questions, we always have a plan. Like for me personally, I want more from my staff sometimes than they want for themselves. And I can see a path to get them there super quick, but they're not always ready for that. And I learned from my mistakes of pushing people too soon before they're ready to be pushed. But in this case, a little scenario, we had one of our staff members, she's an esthetician, and she used to do some makeup, and she had talked about, maybe helping out again. And so this was back in around January, February, and a wedding had reached out for June, which just passed, and we needed an extra hands-on for the wedding makeup. And so this was back in February. Now I'm prepping for June. I say this because a lot of times I think there's owners out there that are trying to lead people and they just put them in the situation. Oh, she said you want to do makeup. You're going to do this wedding. And that is not a successful approach. So what we did was we hired a makeup artist and had a class. And then our esthetician then had to work on models to get her confidence back up and also learn our makeup kit so she knew what her working material was. And then she was ready for this wedding leading into last week. And she absolutely killed it. She was so proud of herself. And she came out of that like, wow, I can do this, And it's neat to see them grow. It's neat to see them build confidence. And it's great to set them up for success in these situations. I love pushing my staff, like I said, but it does require a lot of thoughtful processes to get them there so that it's successful.
Cool. All right. Mine is just a funny observation. Since we're talking about AI, I saw the story from a court case. So there was a court case going on, and a lawyer lazily used AI. This is a cautionary tale, right? So this lawyer used AI, and the AI cited a bunch of cases. So without checking, the lawyer presented those to the judge or in the arguments or whatever. I'm not a lawyer. And the judge was like, these cases don't exist. And so the lawyer that was using the AI actually got in trouble because basically they didn't double check. And why I say that's a cautionary tale is because I keep seeing people that are using things like Chat GPT, and I think they're using them incorrectly. They're not creating things with their own mind. They're just trying to blindly use it. And if a lawyer doesn't know that Chat GPT is, or whatever they used, is leading it down the wrong path, how are you going to know? Mm-hmm. Because I see people all the time that'll say, use it for this. And I use AI for a lot of stuff, and judge me if you want. I really don't care. I double check stuff though. And what I'm using it for are my own words. So for example, let's jump into the episode. If you are interested in the prompt that I created, what it does is it draws from all of our transcripts of all of our podcasts, our website, all of the conversations that I've had with it, all of our past newsletters. It draws from everything. So it knows us, or at least it knows how we create content and what our thoughts are. And so I guess let's just dive in. Let's see what this thing has for us.
I'm scared.
So I don't know the questions. Again, you can read the prompt so you can see what parameters I read. I'll include that somehow in the show notes or whatever. It's too long to include in the show notes, so maybe I'll create a file and then put it in there. But either way, I will make it available so that people can see what's going on. There's going to be 25 questions. The first ones are supposed to warm us up, the first 5, and then it's supposed to shuffle a deck. It's not supposed to change the questions at all. It's not supposed to give us any hints of what's coming. And I just type in question 1 and see what happens. So let's go. Question 1. All right, question 1. What's one belief you held with complete confidence 5 years ago that you no longer believe today? What changed your mind? Was it one defining moment, or was it hundreds of small experiences that slowly reshaped your thinking? I thought it was supposed to warm us up. Jeez.
All right, I'll go first. I got this.
Okay. Go.
When we first opened, my one belief was that retail products defined kind of who we were as a business. And I remember strategically picking 3 different brands because I had this whole idea in my head of like how it hit different spots and how it was like going to market to different people and bring people in. And while I love selling retail to my clients and I believe there is a purpose, I strongly now believe that the retail brands do not define Hello Hair Co. at all.
I don't know if this counts as some like a belief, but it's a way that I used to operate, and I don't know what changed my mind exactly. So I don't know if I'm answering this even close, but I don't have anyone to ask. I would say that walking into your business, it's really easy to see all the stuff that's not going right and ignore the far greater amount of things that are going well. And that's something that I actively shifted in my head, because I used to walk through the door like a few years ago and instantly get irritated because I'm like, why is this person doing this? Why is that person allowing that? I don't understand this. And now when I walk through the door, I try to find something to either connect with the staff or connect with a client or just something positive to start. And I think that is just a mindset shift. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but here we are. All right, moving on. Question 2. Let's see what happens here. Are you laughing at me?
No, that was great.
Oh.
No, I had to cough, so I was hitting mute.
Question 2. Outside of Jen, who's had the biggest influence on the way you think about business? And is this just for me?
Sounds like it.
Outside of Jen, who's had the biggest influence on the way you think about business, and what idea from that person has stayed with you the longest? It doesn't have to be someone famous. It could be a former boss, mentor, author, client, parent, someone you only met once. What did they teach you, and why has that lesson endured? That's probably a past business mentor, Chris Cooper.
That's a good one.
And he taught me help first. You always come from a place of helping first. And when you help other people, the sky is the limit. So that's what I'm going with.
And I get off the hook.
You're not going to answer it? Okay. Question 3.
It said to you.
It didn't say to me.
Oh, well, besides myself, who's my biggest mentor?
Nope. Outside of Jen, who's had the biggest influence on the way you think about business, and what idea from that person has stayed with you the longest?
Oh.
You don't have to answer it.
All right, I'm going to skip.
So this is a great example. It's outside of Jen. It's talking to me. I prompted it to talk to both of us.
Okay.
So that could just be a little quirk there. Question 3. What's something about you that people who only know you through the podcast would probably get completely wrong? What do they assume about you, and what's the reality?
Oh.
What's something about you that people...
That's kind of hard because we don't talk to...
would probably get completely wrong.
I wish Brooke was here. I want to ask her.
She doesn't only know you through the podcast, though.
Yes, but she'd have insight on it to be like, people wouldn't realize this part.
I don't know what people... I think people might think, because I'm fairly blunt, and I'm like that in real life too, not just on the podcast, but I have my opinions and I don't have a problem giving them. And I think what might throw people off is that I am more than open to listen to other opinions too, because I want to learn.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think sometimes people think I'm opinionated or that I come across rough, but I don't think I'm really like that.
I think people might think I have more to do with the podcast than I actually put work in for. Like
That's a
this,
good one.
yeah, this podcast is mainly Todd. I show up and I talk and he gives me the topic. And I believe because I've been in the hair industry for so long, I'm able to kind of on the fly talk about anything. And I have so many different, let's have a long life in it. But as for the podcast itself, that's all I do. I sit here for the hour a week and Todd does everything else.
All right, question 4. This is good. When was the last time one of you looked at the other and thought, you're right, I hadn't thought about it that way? What was the conversation, and what did it teach you about the value of having a business partner who doesn't think exactly like you? Interesting. Do you have something? Or
I don't off the top of my head, so
that's how often you're willing to switch your mind?
I mean, I am fairly stubborn, as we all know. If you didn't know that, I am pretty stubborn.
The thing that pops into my mind, and again, excuse me, I don't know if this is really satisfying the question or not, but there were times where early on in our business relationship, it was difficult for me to shut off business and just be at home. And Jen would say, hey, can we talk about this another time? And then when I started looking at it that way, I think things got even better. Not that they were ever bad, but we used to.
I do remember that.
We used to get frustrated because I would want to talk about business or you would want to talk about it and I didn't want to talk about it. And so once we communicated that to each other, that was smooth sailing from there on out.
Yeah. I remember one time I was like, Todd, I'm wearing my mom hat right now. I can't do that. Like, I need to be a mom and I can't do both. But like, it's hard because we're doing all the things all the time.
Bro, do you have an answer? Or you just
yeah, I do. But I think I just lost it. Shoot. I was wearing my mom hat. Oh, mine was, okay, this was so frustrating to me in the beginning. First of all, we had to make a mission and have a vision and these core values. And it's wonderful now. But at the time, I'm like, why is this so important? And then I'd come to Todd with this great idea because in my last business, I just did everything. I didn't have to get a cosign. I just did it. And even if I pissed off my partner at the time, like she got over it, she really didn't care. So this was a very different relationship. I would think this idea was so great. And then Todd's like, okay, how does it fit into the mission, the vision, the core values? Like, make it make sense, Jen. And I'm like, this is so dumb. Why do I have to do this? And I would be so frustrated. But as I went through those steps and I made things make sense or they didn't make sense, the mission, the vision, the core values, the foundation of the business became so important to me and so clear that I really understood. I lived it. I adopted every part of it. And it's why Hello is to me, and for the way I lead it, so strong. But in the beginning, it was really hard to be like, this make sense. Cause I'm like, well, it does in my head, but how do I find the words? And I would have to figure out how to either explain it or show it in a way that like it worked for Hello or it didn't. And then we didn't do it.
Interesting. So I think that we had a lot of early issues, but then we worked them out because we had the mission, the vision, the core values, all that stuff. So
I would
now
agree.
we're like, this is the stuff. But what I thought you were going to say, Jen, was dress code. Because I remember early on, you were like talking about something. And I said, I'm not wearing all black, just so you know. And you were like, what? And I was like, you can have a dress code, but it's going to be awkward when I'm the only one that's not dressed like that. And I dress like chill, like whatever, some jeans or pants, whatever, t-shirts, flannels in the winter. Like I just, whatever. And I think you were stubborn. And then after a while, you were like, you know what? People can express themselves. And as long as it's done tastefully and it's professional, like that's actually not a bad thing.
Agreed.
So I thought you'd say that, but
I still wear mostly black, but I do agree. And I do love to see the individuality.
All right. Question number 5. This is fun. Imagine your children are adults and each of them asks you the same question. What do you hope we learn from watching you build Hello Hair? What would you hope they say? Not about the salon, not about success, about the way you choose to live. Damn. Chat's getting deep.
Oh. I hope that they would see like a day like today. So the salon's open. Our team knows how to be in there without us. And we were able to go to the pool, just be parents and have fun with our children and realize that owning a business, as much work as we have to put in and they see it day to day and in the hours that it requires, that there's also a turnoff that we can let that business do what it needs to and enjoy our life and be present with our kids on a Monday and just hang out at the pool.
I think it would be something about relationships for me. Like Jen and I we have a relationship. Obviously, we're married, and then we have a relationship as parents, and then we have a relationship as business partners. So I think I would like them to see that and maybe leverage that in choosing their person that they end up choosing for their life, because a lot of people early on were like, don't work with your wife, it's never going to work, you're going to get divorced, you're going to get this. And I'm like, not if you care about the person, not if you love the person, not if you genuinely want to build something with the person. And I think we've shown so far, unless some massive curveball shows up, but we've had things that we've had disagreements and whatever. And I think that I'm able to, at least I'll speak for myself, look at it and go, that's me arguing with my business partner. That has nothing to do with my life partner, my spouse. That has nothing to do with Jen and I as parents.
Right.
And I think being able to separate that, but also being able to just see somebody for more than what they just are with you in one aspect.
Yeah.
So that's mine.
Cool.
All right. So that was question 5. Question 6. So it was supposed to be 5 warm-ups. So I don't know.
I'm scared now.
Yeah. Question 6. What's a piece of business advice you're given for years? Wait, let me start over. Why am I struggling here? What's a piece of business advice you've given for years that you're no longer completely convinced is universally true? Not because it was bad advice, but because you've learned it depends on the person, the business, or the situation. So, business advice that I've given for years, I'm not sure, because
I guess I can give this is again, I'm not so sure I'm answering the question, but this does hold.
Just talk right over me.
Yeah, I will, because you're thinking, so I'm going to go.
Okay, go.
In the beginning of opening, when I ran a business for however long, was like, you have to work nights, you have to work weekends. Like this advice more, I'm talking to the stylists coming out of school. If you want to build, this is how you do it. And it no longer holds true to that exact parameters. In this world, we're really lucky. Like a lot of people have different schedules. We coach now. I'll explain to them if they don't want to work nights and weekends, it might be a slower path. But also we ask them, like, what would be your perfect schedule? Like, what do you want to work? And why not start your career off with what would make you happy from the beginning? And that is not how I approached that in my earlier years. So business advice-ish? I don't know.
I don't know if this counts either, but I'll stop saying that at probably when we end the podcast. But I used to worry about the things that were important to other people. So as far as things like KPIs and stuff, all that business stuff, I would be like, we need this and we need that. And then before long, Jen and I would notice different patterns and different things. And we're like, this is just aging bad advice. I can't say that I've given advice for years, though, that no longer convinces universally true, because I don't think I've given advice for years. I think we go out of our way to constantly reevaluate
agreed.
advice. So
you gotta have an open mind to it and realize it's always changing.
Exactly. All right. Question 7 is populating here. Okay. If you could require every salon owner to master one skill before they were allowed to open a salon, what would it be and why? It can't be cutting. It can't be coloring. Can't be technical hair skills. Business. Math. I would say math. I think that's probably the number one thing that could help people is math, because when you look at the most of what's out there, it's, hey guys, how do I charge for this? Okay, use math to figure it out. You don't need a Facebook group. You need a calculator. You have to figure out your overhead costs. You have to figure out what it costs you to deliver the service. You have to figure out your math. So that would be mine. I think just learning how to do some basic math skills. Not trying to be mean. It's just...
No, it's true. My first 2 thoughts were math and leadership. So since you said math and we're a team, I'm going to go leadership. You need to learn how to lead a team. You need to learn how to have hard conversations. You need to learn how to be honest. You need to learn how to have your systems and enforce them. It's really important for you to be a leader, not a best friend.
The last little part of the question, I guess that's supposed to be like a follow-up. It says, what one skill would change the trajectory of most businesses if... Both
of those.
Yeah. I agree with those. All right. Question number 8. What's one decision you made in the past that felt incredibly risky at the time, but looking back, you would make it again without hesitation? What made it feel risky then? And what did that decision ultimately teach you about courage, business, and yourselves? You have anything there?
I guess I'd go with,
I know
I wouldn't
where
say
you're going.
it's necessarily risky, but when you put systems and rules in place, it's enforcing them. And those conversations aren't always easy. What I've done is change my thought process. I used to go in and be like, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. But then I now go into these conversations. I'm like, well, they're the ones not following the rules that I've clearly laid out. So they deserve this conversation and they deserve to feel however they're going to feel because they need to step up their game. I stopped absorbing all that, almost taking responsibility for them when I'm like, they screwed up. So they need to figure out a new path.
Yeah, I don't know if anything felt incredibly risky because I'm not like a risk adverse person. Like I don't know. I guess maybe certain investments that we made marketing investments that felt risky because you don't truly know if they're going to pay off
Right.
until they do. But I would make that hands down 100% of the time. 10 out of 10 would repeat it,
Yeah,
So I
agreed.
guess I would make that decision again without hesitation. And I like what you said too, just having candor within your business, within your team, just being able to directly tell people because that's all people really want. And
Hmm.
walking on eggshells is not a way for you to lead anybody. We've
Correct.
had our staff even this year that was like, I think we had one person in the meetings, our one-on-ones or two-on-ones really, right? Who said, I think I need you to yell at me when I do this because then maybe it'll get through. And we're like, nah, we'll figure out a different way. We're not going to yell at you,
Yeah.
but we do need things to be done the way we want them done because it's our business and
Yeah.
we've created it in a certain way. Yeah, I guess I'd say that. What are we at for time? Oh, we're doing pretty good.
Doing great.
Question number 9. What's something that you've intentionally not done at Hello Hair, even though almost everyone in the industry told you that you should? Looking back, do you think that saying no has been just as important to your success as saying yes? What made you trust your own judgment over conventional wisdom? Yeah, everything. Yeah. First of all, this industry is full of just super dated
Yeah.
information of people from the 80s who are still running their businesses the same way. And they're wondering why they can't hire and they're wondering why they. So here's one. We give people a lot of freedom. And I've had people tell me early on that it wouldn't work. You're going to be closed. They're going to take advantage. They're going to steal all your clients. They're going to do this. They're going to leave. They're going to whatever, sabotage you. Yeah, that's not happening. Our team is still growing. We're expanding. We've got a little bit of a wait list going on. We have people reaching out constantly. I would say that doing things our way. I remember, I don't want to say who it was because I don't want to be rude, but we went to one of those business meeting things a while back and they told us all the things we had to do and we had to put this in and we had to look at this KPI and we had to put in this system and this is how you onboard people and bring them on. And we don't do any of that. And I see businesses that do that, but they have no identity. They're just the same
Right.
as every other business.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think it was just curating Hello from the beginning the way we wanted to do it and innovating and then having that mission, that vision, and those core values that tripped me up in the beginning, but that really helped make all the decisions. It was interesting. I was just at a hair extension class we ended up sending most of our staff to. And a lot of times I'd get into these classes, and when they talk about certain things as an owner, I always used to feel so not confident. I'm like, oh, I don't know why we do this in our business. I don't know why we do this. And I sat in that class and for the first time and probably ever being an owner, so confident, was happy to help, like was happy to answer questions and was just like, I know confidently what we do, why we do it, the way we do it, A, B, C, D, this is how we do it. And even one of our staff, they asked a question and she goes, we don't need to know that, Jen and Todd, just take care of that stuff for us, which is how you lead a team. And that's what an owner should be doing. And I was just this really proud moment of every decision we make and everything we put in place from even just the color line we use or the retail products. Everything is curated for a specific reason and not just because.
agree. Good stuff. All right, let's see if we can get question 10 here. This thing has been thinking forever. So,
Nope. It's on a coffee break.
Connection interrupted, waiting for the complete answer. Oh, okay.
Maybe I talk too fast.
What you say has nothing to do with this, but...
I was just kidding.
Oh. I was like, no, you're not impacting it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Question 10. If someone spent 1 week quietly observing the way you run Hello Hair, what's one thing they'd notice that you've never talked about on the podcast? Could be a habit, a routine, a conversation, a standard, decision-making process, or something so normal that you've forgotten it's unusual. Why do you think that practice has become part of the way you lead? Huh.
That's tough because I do think we cover, I would assume, most.
Yeah, dude, I would say we talk about everything on the podcast.
Yeah, we don't really hold back. We talk about failures even, which a lot of people don't want to tell those stories, but happy to tell them because that's generally where people get a bigger learn out of.
I think maybe that, so I think where I would go with this question, I'll switch it up a little bit, but where I would go with this question is that we actually do every single thing that we say we're going to do or we say we do. So in our podcast, I'm sure people have listened before and said, there's no way they do that. There's no way they have education every day. There's no way that they bring on apprentices like that. There's no way this is how they structure their schedule. There's no way that they don't have whatever.
Yeah, like I think people would be surprised.
I think people would be surprised at we actually do all of that stuff.
Yeah, I actually think people would be more surprised, like, whoa, they do more than I even thought. That really is happening more than I would have expected.
What? Do you have an example? I think that's what...
I would say education would be first. It is always happening all the time and just all the time. And then I think even like when we talk about having hard conversations with staff or something, whatever, those could be daily some weeks when just people are just not on their A game. These things it's not, oh, today we're going to talk about this. Tomorrow we'll do education. These are simultaneously happening and sometimes they're planned stuff and sometimes they're not. It just depends. When there's opportunity, we take advantage. And what does that look like? So we're always working and we're always growing and we're always being better.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, that's where I'd leave that one. All right, question 11. What's a belief you hold today that if it turns out to be wrong 10 years from now would genuinely surprise you? In other words, what's one idea about business leadership, people, or life that feels so foundational to you today that you could hardly imagine changing your mind about it? Mine is just how you treat people. I don't think ever operating with integrity and treating people the right way will go out of style. I just don't. I can't believe that there are companies. I get it. Like you're just a number to some of these large companies. They'll replace you. And that's how they've chosen to operate. But I can't believe that you wouldn't be more successful if you invested in your people and you cared about what they want and you asked them. And I think it's bringing people together rather than the division. I saw something today that somebody was like asking about interviewing and someone said, people need to understand that we're the ones interviewing them. And I was like, why is it we and them?
Mm-mm.
Why are we trying to divide things? Why are we always trying to put people into these categories instead of just being like, this is my team. This is
a relationship.
Yeah, it's a relationship and it goes both ways. And I wouldn't want somebody to treat me like trash, so I don't treat other people like trash. I just, I'm not like, oh, I'm a manager or I'm an owner.
Treat people the way you want to be treated. Old school, but it works.
Go do my oil change. I'm the owner. Like I would never do that to somebody.
Oh. I would just say education. And stemming off yours too. I see a lot of people like, why would I train my staff if they're just going to leave? I have no fear in training all my staff every single day and giving them every piece of knowledge that's in my brain if they want it. And at some point, if they leave, then I hope they're better off because of it. It's a proud moment. And I don't ever see that education in the future would be something that would shock me if like that it wasn't a big part of us. It's just, I'll never stop doing it.
That was question 11. Yeah. All right. Question 12. How many do you want to do?
15.
All right. We'll do 15 and then we'll end it.
Okay.
We'll do this again, though. It's fun. Yeah. I have no idea what the questions are at all. So again, I'll put that.
I'm even getting tripped up. Usually I've got an answer like right away. I'm like, I got to think for a second.
Well, it's not, you're used to my style of talking.
True. I know. I was like, what questions are from you?
Right. Asking questions and stuff. So question 12. If Hello Hair had failed in its first year, oh, okay. What do you think would have been the real reason? Not the obvious reason, not that we ran out of money. Looking back with everything you know today, what weakness in your thinking, leadership, or decision making would have been the most likely cause? And how did you prevent that from becoming your story? I have an easy one.
Okay.
I think if we had strayed from our core values and
Yeah.
who we truly are as individuals and who we wanted to be together as a company and where we wanted this company to go, I think if we had strayed from that, we would have lost our identity quickly. We probably would have been like every other salon out there. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Just this is a copycat industry and everybody copies everybody. People are all charging the same things. People think that this is just how it goes. If somebody has an idea, everyone just, rather than come up with their own ideas or rather than go, how come? They just go, okay, that's how it's done. That's how it's always been done. And I think that's dangerous. And I think that probably Hello would have ended maybe because I would say maybe I just even lost interest. I have no interest to build a business that's cookie cutter. I just don't. It's boring.
Yeah, let me tell you, the first year was freaking hell. So I
Tell
say
them the
this.
year. Tell them the year if there's new listeners.
It was COVID, so it was really bad. It was COVID, and I was coming out of a dissolve of my last business, so I was like basically drowning. I feel as like a human being in my brain, and then we were trying to get this new business up that like I really wanted to be inspired by, but I had arrived there, and I wasn't who I am today. So when we would hit a wall, I'd go back to all my old bad habits of being an owner and being like, that's not going to work. We should just go back to this. And yeah, that would have been the death of us, like really quickly. And it would have been a very boring business. And it wasn't why I closed my last business. I really wanted something new and innovative and creative. But I just, at the time when we would hit these walls, I didn't realize how much work it was going to take. And when I say work, I don't mean like cutting hair, work mentally, emotionally, and changing my mindset and becoming this new person. That is not easy to do. And especially in a point where you're like, I got to do this now. What does this look like? And Todd and I, we say this often, even maybe not often because we don't, it's not an often thing, but I know we've talked about this of like even in marriages, right? I really believe like the long-term marriages, I'll say like, I believe they made it long term because when things were shitty, both people didn't want to throw in the towel at the same time. Someone wanted to fight more than the other, and they brought the other person with them. And I mean, Todd and I are going to be married 19 years this year. That's not an easy thing, and that means that happens with us too. One of us is like, "Wow," I'll say to him like, "I'm not having fun," and so Todd could easily be like, well, me either. Then let's get over this. Instead, I say that and he's like, okay, how do we change this? What's the conversation? Why are we here? And we brought that part of our relationship into our business relationship. So the same exact thing. Like I would look at him and be like, this isn't fun for me. This is way too hard. Like, okay, Jen, what do we do to get over this hurdle? We're not going backwards and you're not going to bring your badass habits into these because we're not that same business. And we've agreed to innovate and pivot and make this great salon in a world that most aren't doing these things. So how do we get your brain here? And that was not easy at all. And that was a lot of like ups and downs, but we did it.
Yeah, we're here, still standing. All right, question 13. So three more here.
Okay.
What's something you've become less certain about as you've gained more experience? When you were younger in business, you may have had strong opinions and quick answers. Today, what's an area where experience has actually made you more humble? What do you know? What do you now find yourself saying instead of assuming there's one answer? Oh, what do you now find yourself saying? It depends instead of assuming there's only one right answer. What's something that you've become less certain about as you've gained more experience?
I feel like the more I've been in the industry, the more I realize I don't know. And there's so much to learn. And that there's not just one way. And having a conversation and working out the logistics with Todd and I, and sometimes even bringing in a third person to just get a different eye on the scenario. And that doesn't mean someone that has to be hair related, but looking at other businesses and how they operate and what can we steal from them to put into our business. But that there's just so much more to learn.
Yeah, that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. And that's the first thing that popped into my head. So when, if you're not familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect, you can look it up. It's a psychological thing that happens to all of us. And when you first start gaining knowledge about a particular topic, you become dangerous because you think you know way more than you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that holds true, right? People come out of school and what are they doing? They're saying school didn't teach me anything. I do this. They're know-it-alls, right? They know everything. And then as you go through, you start to go through what they call to or refer to as the valley of despair. And that's when you realize you don't know shit.
Mm.
You know nothing. And that's only at that point can you start to truly master any sort of skill or anything. And I don't know if that's specific enough answer, but I think we'll leave it there. So I'm not dwelling on it because I'm not really sure. Something I've become less certain about. I think everything. I think what you were getting at is like
Yeah.
you just, you realize how much there is to know.
Yeah, it's crazy and
Like,
exciting.
like Jen is always like, oh, you are really good at this. And I'm like, I don't know anything about that. And you're like, well, you know a lot more than the average person. And I'm like, oh, maybe, but I don't know. I barely scratched the surface of whatever the topic is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Just because I've read a couple of books doesn't mean that I know what I'm talking about. All right, question 14. What's a compliment you've received about Hello Hair that meant more to you than you expected? Not because it praised your work, but because it confirmed that something you were intentionally trying to build was actually being seen by someone else. Why did that compliment stick with you?
Just recently, we just took on what?
I have two.
Okay. We just recently took on a new apprentice, and a client of mine, I've cut his hair since he was 3 years old. He's now a sophomore in college, came in and he came and sat in my chair and he's like, wait, you have Alex working here now? And I'm like, yeah, how do you know Alex? And he's like, I have been telling Alex she needs to work with you. She could learn so much from you. Like, he just went on and on about what he thought of me when I just cut his hair. And I was floored at the way, like, the amount of educational value that I could bring to his peers. And it was just really cool. And I said thank you. And then we recently brought on someone to help out over the summer. And I'd reached out to her mom, like, how was her first day? And she was like, Jen, she got in the car and was like, oh my God, I love my job so much. And she was like, well, it's not really a job. You're just helping out. But she's like, that's how you're supposed to feel about your job. And it's neat to have people around you that think you're doing great things and love being around what you're creating. That's why we keep doing it.
My two are real quick, and I used to, when we first opened, I used to take offense to this, but I've gotten a handful of people over the years that say, is this a chain?
Mm.
And so people would walk in, and I think because our level of cleanliness, the way it's organized, the way things are actually structured, and it's not just a free for all, not everybody's just out for themselves. I think that is what they mean by chain, because they see that it's run. Like a chain is run, right?
Yeah.
You're not, there's managers and there's this, and we don't even have that level.
Right.
But our staff knows what they're supposed to be doing and they do it. And so I think because it's run and operated in a structured manner, that people notice that and think chain. My second one is probably actually the better of the two, but I have this client, he's, I believe, 85 years old, and he lost his wife, I want to say 8 years ago, he said. And he will tell me, Todd, she would have loved coming here. She would have loved this place. She would have loved coming in and hanging out with the girls and just being here. And I think that's just a huge compliment for somebody that's remembering their wife that's passed and picturing them in our environment. Yeah. And I just think that's super cool.
Very special.
Last question, Jen.
Okay.
Question 15. If you had to remove one core value from Hello Hair tomorrow and you could never use it again, which one would be the hardest to lose? Why that one?
I'm going to say integrity.
What would begin to change inside the business if it disappeared? And what does your answer reveal about what truly sits at the center of everything you've built? Jeez, that's a good one to end on. What'd you say? Integrity?
Integrity, for sure. It's not a value that I think in my younger years even thought about, but it's truly the backbone of Hello Haircut. You lead with integrity. Everything we do has to have that. And without it, it's, can I say this word? It's just a shit show. And I think you start doing things that are meaningless. Integrity all the way.
What's the hardest one? I have to go with integrity too, but I don't want to use it because you
I
used it.
know.
I want to give a different
It's really it's it. There's not a better one.
I think we had talked about, so we had a flood over the winter, and I think we had talked about removing, one of our core values was pride. And it never really sat with me because it can have a negative sort of vibe. And it's one of the deadly sins, right? Pride.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so we had talked about adding resilience because what our team and what we were able to do and pull off during that time, I think what happened to us would have closed a lot of businesses, unfortunately. And I hate to say that. And so resilience is the ability to just keep fighting and keep going. And it's like when Jen said, when one person wants to quit, because there were times where I was like, if I was our staff, I would quit. This situation sucks and there's nothing that we can do about it. And we're trying our best. And you know what they did? They all showed up. They all showed up and they all were like, what do you need?
Yeah. I wanted to quit, but I was like, I'm not because of them. I will do whatever they need.
Yeah, I think so. Integrity is definitely the core value that we came up with first. That's first and foremost. But I think the new core value, and we don't even have it on our wall yet, but just resilience is, because if you're not willing to fight, then you're done either way. Doesn't
And
matter.
not willing to fight when you're down. Like,
Yeah.
you got to get out of that pit.
All right. So, anyways, that was that
Okay.
was an interesting episode. I think maybe we'll do it again. I don't know.
Cool. I liked it.
Give it a few months, and then maybe we'll try something like this again.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye.